When and where exactly does Deadpool and Wolverine take place? Where is relatively easy. Deadpool's universe is Earth 10005, separate from the Avengers universe, which is Earth 616. Deadpool briefly visits Earth 616 in 2018 to audition for the Avengers, which he fails. But when it comes to timelines, things get a bit messy. Officially, Deadpool and Wolverine happens in the present, 2024, before the events of the movie Logan, which happens in 2029. Which technically means that the Wolverine we know from the Fox X-Men movies is still alive in this universe for now. In fact, all the X-Men are still somewhere in this universe as well. Well, maybe not. When Paradox shows Deadpool the representation of his reality on one of those TVA monitors, we see a main timeline and these sub-timelines branching from it. Meaning the main branch could be for the original Fox X-Men trilogy with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, and then another one for the new timeline created by the X-Men Days of Future Past events, and even branches for Elektra, Fantastic Four, and all the Fox Marvel movies. They all stem from Earth 10005, but they split or branch into separate realities, which retroactively explains why the Fantastic Four never meet the X-Men, who never meet Elektra, who never meets Deadpool, although they all existed under the 20th Century Fox banner, which would also confirm a long-time theory that Logan actually takes place in a separate, alternate timeline, independent of the X-Men films that we've seen, meaning he's not the same Wolverine from the X-Men movies, but has had some similar events in his timeline. However, Deadpool and Wolverine suggest that Logan happens in the main 10005 timeline, or the tree trunk, if you will, whereas Deadpool's world is actually in a sub-timeline, or a branch timeline, which makes a lot more sense.
I think I understand.
Deadpool being in a separate sub-timeline would actually explain a few inconsistencies in his universe, like why there are only a few X-Men there and why his Colossus and Juggernaut look different from the ones we see in the X-Men movies. But there are two issues with those theories. Deadpool has always mentally existed outside his own time and reality, and as a fourth wall breaker, he is aware of everything in every timeline, including the MCU, including ours, from even before Disney bought 20th Century Fox. He's also aware of the DC universe and every other movie franchise, so trying to shoehorn the Deadpool movies into any kind of coherent reality goes against the nature of the character itself.
Who are you? I'm Batman.
Two, in Deadpool and Wolverine, this kid recognizes Logan, literally confirming that there is another Wolverine in this timeline.
It's Wolverine.
You're damn straight it is. Disney brought him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
Why didn't Deadpool just knock on the X-Men's door in his present timeline, or stop the events in Logan from ever happening before they ever happened? And also, was the ending of Logan an absolute point in time, as introduced in What If Season 1? Once you throw in stuff like anchor beings, absolute points in time, canon events, and multiple other space-time concepts that have been peppered throughout the MCU and some of Sony's Spider-Man movies, things become increasingly complicated to follow.
The multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little.
The multiverse is real.
The truth is, the timelines don't matter at all. That's the easiest answer, but it's also the most honest answer. The timeline in Deadpool and Wolverine isn't important because by design, the movie exists both in the MCU canon and also outside of it. And I'm not talking about stuff like The Void or the TVA. Many of us use the word meta to describe Deadpool and his ability to break the fourth wall, which is great for comedy and makes the character very unique. But the entire movie of Deadpool and Wolverine is one big meta commentary on the MCU and the superhero genre. This movie is parody, satire, sketch comedy. A lot of people call the plot thin, but there are actually two stories at work here, right? There's all the stuff happening in the Void with Cassandra Nova and the Deadpool Corps, and the Resistance with Elektra and Blade and Gambit and Laura. And then there's the story with Paradox, which is an analogy for how the studio wants to shut down the 20th Century Fox universe while plucking some of its characters for the MCU, like Deadpool. Paradox is basically a studio big shot or a producer maybe from Disney. He's got the suit and the tie. He's so much a representation of a big suit who doesn't want to make more movies in the Fox universe because without Wolverine, that universe isn't lucrative or profitable anymore. That's the whole thing about quote-unquote anchor beings. You could argue that Robert Downey Jr. is the anchor being of the MCU because Marvel Studios has been on a decline and struggled to keep quality ever since he left, even though there are so many other factors at play there. But they brought him back into the MCU to play another character. So anchor being is just another word for this franchise doesn't have its star. But because Deadpool as a character has so much value left in him, the studio wants to pluck him from his universe and drop him into the MCU where he can join the Avengers. A producer saying, I don't care for Deadpool's universe, but I want the character to meet the Avengers because that would be cool and that would probably sell a lot of merch.
Merchandise.
At the same time though, the end of the movie confirms that this universe is alive and has new anchor beings, and is also accessible by the TVA, all of which to say that Disney can pick and choose which Fox superheroes it wants to feature in their upcoming movies, mainly Deadpool and Wolverine for Avengers Secret Wars. Maybe we'll see X-23 again, and maybe MCU Gambit will be played by Channing Tatum. So, if I may, I think we should think of the universes that are not the 616 Sacred Timeline as toy boxes filled with goodies for the studio to play with. The timelines within those toy boxes don't matter, ultimately. The only canon that matters is when the toys are taken out of the box, and whatever happens on the outside is the only series of events that should make sense. And I know that saying the timelines don't matter sounds like a non-answer, sure, but when a non-answer is the best way to answer every plot hole and inconsistency in a movie, then it becomes the best way to sustain your enjoyment if you want, and to see a movie for what it's trying to be. Deadpool and Wolverine is engineered to be a fun, cinematic experience, and it delivers on every single front. It's big and bold and colorful, and it is an exhibition of superheroes that paved the way and built the foundation for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, although indirectly. It's a love letter to Hugh Jackman and the Wolverine, and it is extremely faithful to the Deadpool comics and Deadpool as a character. It also isn't perfect, like at all. While it would have been fun for the timelines to add up, ultimately these characters exist in a sort of pocket reality where they don't actually have to, because it doesn't really affect the larger MCU all that much. So again, are the X-Men still around somewhere at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine? Maybe, but it doesn't matter.